Welcome to Talking in Stations. We're going to talk a lot about Patch Day today on this date, April 27th. I'm here with a slew of really informative guests. My co-host today, of course, is Rundle. How you doing?
Doing great. Hello to all fellow New Eden pilots on this patch day.
Yeah. Also with us, we have from TIS, Kenneth. How you doing, Kenneth?
How's it going, Amatar?
Good. He's from Pandemic Legion, an industrial juggernaut. He's going to help us flush out a lot of things because he's also on the CSM, but especially this production patch that came out today. Huge change to the game. Also with us, talk about War Matters, is Test FC and also an associate of Talking in Stations. He was part of the midweek show. You know him, RonUSMC. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing well, man.
Good.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. There is a lot of information to go through, and I really want to get to the production stuff. So we'll just start at the very top with war news. Ron and actually anybody who wants to talk, last Keepstar went down today in PS TAC 94K. There was no Killmail for it.
That's something that we've talked to Villy about, right? You know, because he's our resident CSM guy, and I'm sure Kenneth has probably heard about it as well. But yeah, a Killmail didn't generate it for it, maybe because there was too many people, et cetera, et cetera. But there's been a couple like that, FSO and BX TAC, I think.
Yeah, it's three,
two
right?
others. Yeah.
So
but yeah, it was pretty historic, man. Like, it was a big deal. It's the last Keepstar outside of the 1DQ constellation, so it's very exciting.
How many Keepstars have been taken down? There's 11 left, but how many were taken down?
Let me look.
I think it was, I want to say it was 31, 32, maybe more.
It's a bunch.
Yeah, so
A lot.
41 dead Keepstars this war. 36 Killmails you can look up on Zkill. The no Killmail one in F2O. The missing Killmail from BX TAC. The definitely not Goon one in KQK. The stolen one in KTAC 6. And the ganked one in WTAC K. And to be fair, I would say that we have lost 4. Right? The 3 that weren't anchored. And there's no Killmail. And then the low sec one as well.
Okay, so you've lost 3, but the Imperium and Delve and where the war is really centered, 41, did you say? Sorry, what was?
Yep.
Wow. That's more than I thought. 41 Keepstar is dead, 11 to go. All 11 are actually in the constellation of 1DQ. We'll take a look at that real quick. Tell us about the after party as I'm pulling up the map here, because once that Keepstar was dead, what did you guys do?
Well, you know, you never want to CTA sort of mass form, you know, and then have the guys just do a Killmail and then that's the end. So after the kill, we circled back around T5 and then just went all the way around over into 3TAC D, which is the entrance to the 1DQ constellation. I'd say that it's the lesser entrance, with the main entrance being 1DQ. So we went in over to 3TAC D and we started shooting structures, the jump bridge, and then I think the beacon and a jammer. And that's when it all hell cut loose, right?
Yeah, that turned into a big fight. Can you talk
That
about
escalated quickly.
Yeah.
Well, Imperium has a jump bridge.
Responded, man.
Yeah, Imperium has a jump bridge right into 3 TAC D, right? From 1DQ.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it basically saves them 2 jumps, right? I think it would have gone a lot better for us if we were able to reinforce that jump bridge, right? To stop their reinforcements, and then they would have had to cycle the jammer, right? They cycled the jammer anyway, eventually, but not being able to reinforce that jump bridge allowed them to keep adding reinforcements, and we were fighting on the jump bridge, so they didn't even have to warp anywhere, right? It was great.
Yeah, it was easy pickings for them. So what did they do, and what did it look like in the end there?
They dropped, you know, at first it was the Baltac doctrine, which are Megathrons, Balgorns, and then Fax as the Logi. And what was great about it was they came out of the jump bridge and then they were already perfect. They were in a perfect circle ready to go. So they came out. That was the first. And then in it was there in Abaddon's. And I also believe Ferox's, if I remember right, or maybe it was Goonswarm and Ferox's. And then there were, tons of smaller things as well. It was pretty crazy.
Let's have a look.
The battle report is quite interesting to read. What I'm a little confused about, Ron, is how there was 4.2 billion worth of pods lost on the Pappy side. Who's flying around in those expensive pods? Seriously.
I could look at the pods, but it sounds like a bunch of learning clones, to be honest. If there were a lot of capsules, it sounds like maybe just people just had +3s in, and we rage pinged, right? Everybody jumps in and people just don't look. I mean, I'm not an expert on the best pods.
Yeah. 549 pods on the Pappy side, 4.2 billion. 140 pods on the Imperium side, 1.1 billion. So, it's not like it's actually the ratio. If you were to just keep scaling the ratio, they would have had more expensive pods if you just kind of do the math. But still, just on both sides, guys, pods takes just a couple seconds. Deal with it.
Well,
come on.
To be fair, and we'll talk about this later, the numbers are sagging because they say it's a boring war. I put that in quotes. We'll talk about why it's a boring war, if it is. Yeah. But there's a lot of, boring or not, there's a lot of time where you're sitting basically. So you want to have learning implants in the pod if you're going to be in this war for weeks, not expecting to get killed. And I think the last month, there wasn't a lot of resistance. So I think you do want learning implants in your pod at the highest level. And that might cost you 500 million, but I think it's worth a month of training. Okay, that said, you do have a Keepstar where you can change your outfit. So maybe, this just happened too fast. One thing that caught my attention was the really strong response from the Imperium coming in here. And they wiped out 1,200 of your ships to their 300 or 400, more or less, of their ships. And that looks pretty lopsided. I do know that they were excited about this fight. They really wanted to get people in there because it was shooting a lot of stuff. On the other side of the coin, however, the efficiency doesn't work in their favor. You can see here on this battle report, it's 40% to 60% in favor of Pappy because they were using expensive dreadnoughts. And Pappy casualties came, I think, mostly from Ferox's.
I think 440 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a ton. And that is not a good trade going into the future. Now, I want to preface this with saying both groups have tons of money right now, but going into the future, I'm not sure this is the right way to do it, losing dreadnoughts to Ferox. What do you guys think?
I think Kenneth would be able to answer that.
Feroxes are really easy to replace now. Dreads, not so much.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a you have them, let's use them on the last day sort of thing. Maybe there was a little bit of a celebration or a stand. I also noticed they brought a lot of battleships as well. So that I know they've been always in the conversations I've had. There's kind of this desire to have a big battleship fight as well. So it looks like they tried to have one, as long as some dreads as well. Yeah, probably was a lot of fun to be on the Imperium side with all those battleships and dreads floating around.
Right. So that's. Go ahead.
Yeah, battleships right now aren't that hard to replace. I'm already stockpiling stuff. I'm sure goons are as well. They could probably replace several hundred battleships right now and not feel a whole lot of pain at all.
Yeah, right. I don't think this is painful. And maybe, throwing some HAW dreads, which are high-angle weaponry dreads, which can shoot subcapitals or basically smaller ships, is exciting, right? Because you feel super powerful doing it. And so you may want to reward morale or get people hyped, by throwing them in with big ships, dreadnoughts that are just annihilating everybody. That may be a good trade, like emotionally. On paper and ISK-wise, it's not necessarily a good trade, but right now, that may not be the consideration that's most important.
Yeah, on the numbers side for sure. Yeah, 444. Basically, Ferox is lost, right? That's to 4 battleships. That's if you're on on the Imperium side, you're having a lot of fun in this fight for sure. A lot of targets to shoot, a lot of targets going down, and probably no one's worrying too much about the ISK efficiency at this point on a fight like this.
Yeah, Ron, you might speak to this being an FC, that you want to provide a good time for your guys, and sometimes that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And I think, I was watching and I thought the calls were great on Pappy's side, that the battleships, were putting out massive damage. The Feroxes were putting out damage, but those Haw Dreads can absolutely murder things, especially, bubbled, right? Like, and they can just murder Feroxes. So they were killing Faxes and they were killing the Haw Dreads, right? They're getting the DPS off the field, and I think they were also still trying to reinforce the jump bridge to stop reinforcements. And then it just got to a point where, they were starting to lose more as the reinforcements kept stacking up. The gate that we had to take was bubbled to hell. And, in tie-dye, that makes it even worse. So we weren't able to get reinforcements there as fast as just sitting on a jump bridge. I thought all the guys on Pappy did great, and I thought the guys on Imperium did well. Like, looking at the damage, the most damage from their side was from the Feroxes, right? And the second most damage was their battleships, right?
Yeah,
and then way behind was their Haw Dreads.
Yeah, Voided Marrow Gaming says that the Haw Dreads didn't actually get on Killmails, and that kind of changes my perspective on this then.
Yeah, it's interesting. And a lot of, this kind of thing is about probing and seeing what their reactions are going to be, and
right,
us adjusting our tactics, to what they're going to do. And I think this kind of is like a prelude to being able to, ramp things up and have some more fun in the coming weeks.
So Ron, it's the difference is only 38 billion. As an FC or even just as a general member of a big coalition fighting another one, 38 billion, even though it's 60-40, doesn't feel like a really big spread. Like, so I would, for me, I would say the ISK was it's kind of even, and then I would look at the numbers, and I would probably in this case say Imperium won this fight. Would you look at it the same way given those numbers?
Well, I mean, I would consider it just a fight, right? That Pappy won the ISK war. Yeah, who cares, right? The most important thing about this fight was that, it was being streamed, that people had fun in it, that, Imperium got to use, one of their favorite defensive doctrines, Baltex, and this kind of thing helps morale. It helps people log in. And the next time when Imperium is pinging or Pappy is pinging, like, we need this, more people are going to want to get involved, right? They see all this fun that everyone had, and they're going to want to be in on that. And that's the most powerful thing. We didn't have an objective. The ISK war, whatever, that's for Reddit, man. Like,
yeah, it was a strength
everyone had
check.
fun.
This is an I call it the after party because you killed the Keepstar. You had all these guys all dressed up. You needed somewhere to go, and you went to 1DQ Constellation, which is next. You got involved in some of the structures there. They defended. Good fight. People happy. That is good for future fights as people will sign up for the next one. Let's look at participation, actually, because this Flanders guy, I think he's not from Initiative, although it's or Bastion. I think it says he is, but he's not. This came out on Reddit. And basically, he comes out every, week or so? Except you can see here, he skipped a few weeks. Comes out and basically says, like, what the PvP fighting numbers are. These aren't theoretical numbers. If you register on a kill, you register to your corporation as a PvPer, and then you add up the corporations and you get the alliance number. And so if you look on Dotland, you can see who's participated in the last week and been on at least one Killmail. So these are rough numbers, but they're more accurate than theoretical numbers of how many people are inside of a corporation or an alliance. And it shows the numbers have slowly gone down by 10 or 20% across the board. Now, people say, there's the word, right? Across the board. Not people, but Brisk, I've heard him say, and I see him in Reddit also continuing that narrative of this war is so boring. What do you think about that?
Well, looking at the numbers, there's the graph does have a nice table on the side and tracking the 38-week change. Test is up a bit, but just the last month, that's what I'm looking at. The last month, it is down, as you say, across the board, various amounts. But each of these groups have had to do some additional work that is going to take away from the fight, right? Moving into Quirius, moving into Delve requires ADM fleets and more logistics and moving. And there's things happening in the world. Spring has sprung. There's lots of different things. So there's absolutely always an ebb and flow. Some of the big numbers I think that jump out at me is the initiative. That's the 38-week change is huge. Even the 4-week change is quite large. The rest, boring could be an element. They seem to be trending equally, though. If you look at the graph, they all kind of have the same ebb and flow. For Goon Swarm, Pandemic Horde, Test, they're kind of tracking almost the same shapes, and Initiative, NC, and Brave, almost similar shapes. So something, there's the two elements is what's happening in the real world as well as kind of what's happening in the war. And if you take a step back and look at that, I think that accounts for these numbers. I certainly know on our side, there's been a lot of focus on a little bit more of the move-in tasks, and that takes away from fleets.
Oh, good point. Ron, you have anything to say about it or not?
I would think that, today's fight is sort of a bookmark on that, right? It's no longer boring for the Imperium, right? I can see, that if they're purposefully not defending things because they want to keep it in-house in the 1DQ constellation, today is the end of that, right? And,
right.
Hey, that might kind of lead to people losing learning clones, right?
Yeah.
They've been sitting there for so long.
See, that's indicative, isn't it? That people were having learning clones, which are valuable, in your pods because you didn't think you were going to face resistance.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty good sign that where the mindset is of Pappy players. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's a pretty good debate going on in the audience as to, I said, I kind of call it a loss. And it's each side is going to have their own narrative. I'm just trying to look at it as fact. If I take a step back and I look at the numbers, the dollar, the ISK is fairly even. The ship types, sure, but the raw numbers of people who got inconvenienced in that regard, I would say, well, it's a pretty big ratio. So it really comes down to what you consider is more important. And in a fight like this, I consider the morale and the emotional victory to probably be far more important. And I certainly have been on fights like this as well, where in terms of sheer numbers, we mow down very large numbers, but the ISK war we're on the wrong side. But I personally feel as a pilot, wow, we won. I have an enormously filled kill board, and I feel good about that.
All right. The last thing on this, we'll move on. We have a lot to get through. Is if you're going to say the war is so boring in an attempt to drive a wedge between the players and their leaders, which I think is what they're trying to do, it kind of cracks me up because if the war is boring, that means you're not resisting, therefore you're not providing any resistance, so you're getting rolled. Or you are resisting and you're not doing it very well and you're getting rolled. So it is very boring for your opponents to just destroy everything that you have. Doesn't seem to me to be a good selling point. And also, it doesn't take into account that there are going to be lulls in any war, especially long ones. And when things get easy, less people show up. Now it's going to get hard. Now we're going to see those numbers. You already saw a good strength check from Pappy. You saw a really good strength check from the Imperium. Whether it was boring or not, I don't know, but it certainly ebbs and flows, and now it's flowing. So we'll see what happens in the future. Okay. Today, an interesting thing happened in Amatar, I think it was. There was some in-game event that happened that I got a chance to look in on. Let's have a look at that video. Let me make sure the volume doesn't crank. And basically you had some Brutor tribe dreadnoughts attacking an Amatar planet, their capital planet, and they were doing orbital bombardment, which reminded me of Dust Days, which is kind of cool. Oh, why isn't this video coming up? Maybe Twitch, there it goes. So you can see the orbital bombardment. You see 3 Naglfar dreadnoughts bombing that planet. That planet city there was called Tor Amat, which is the capital of the Amatar. Basically, what's it called? The Amatar Mandate, which is a people that are basically Minmatar, but they like the Amarian way. So they've kind of switched sides. And so they are kind of considered like traitors or whatever to Minmatar. So the Brutor attacked them, and the official Minmatar Republic said, we don't know anything about this. We don't know why they're doing that. So there is a backstory there to explore if you're interested. But this became a live event. Those 3 dreadnoughts were destroyed by players, which was quite cool. And that event lasted only about a half hour, but now there's news about it. So you can check that out in the world news right here. You can check that out inside of, I guess it's the community.eveonline.com. They have world news, and this describes what happened in the backstory and that sort of stuff, which is quite cool. Okay, last thing about this that was interesting was you might have seen this high-sec authorized mobile sinusoidal beacon. That is just a prop. It doesn't exist. People did see it in the database and maybe got a little freaked out. But don't worry about it. It's just decoration for this event. And what's neat is when that was dropped, those dreads, of course, were next to it, so it looked like that's where they jumped into. But what you could do is actually warp to this sinusoidal beacon, which was great, because that means you could warp right to where the dreads were and participate in the event. Pretty cool. I was there, by the way. And this reminds me, this attack reminds me of when the Quantum Rise trailer came out in 2008, I think. Now, it was a cool trailer that showed when Khador, that was kind of an offshoot of Amar, attacked Galente Federation space. Let's take a quick look at that. I'll put on the volume for this one. Hopefully you can hear it. I'll take a look.
Wrapping up financial news, commodity prices fell on profit-taking for trading runs, but the manufacturing sector rallied on economic data showing a sharp increase in orders for Starship components. Meanwhile, an increase in mining yield for the period indicates...
We have a breaking story. This is live footage of the Revelos border in Solitude, where Imperial Navy warships have just crossed... wait, correction. We have reports now that those ships belong to the Amarian Royal Air Urium Khador, not the Imperial... Whoa! They've opened fire.
I don't believe it.
Amarian Air Urium Khador has just launched a personal invasion of Federation space, which just months ago was invaded by... I'm sorry, we're getting more footage now.
Okay, heavy fighting is underway between forces in... Look!
Military experts are calling this a sinusoidal field.
Hundreds, maybe thousands of ships are coming through. Oh my God.
This is a massive Federation counterattack. The Galentians are fighting back with everything they've got.
Look, a Federation Titan has just come through.
There's no escaping them now.
All right, that was a Quantum Rise trailer that came out years ago, 2009. But the reason I bring it up is because it has similarities to what we saw today, which was Minmatar denying that they know what Brutor tribe is up to, which is one of their factions. And in this case, a long time ago, Amar said the same thing about Khador, saying, hey, Galente, we don't know why he's attacking you, but we'll punish him for it. So interesting intrigue there, a little bit of lore. Okay, moving on to a little bit more game news. Asset safety on Hobo Leaks. Actually, this is asset safety chart that was put together by this guy. Don't have his name handy. He's from Test. Let's see, Namina. And he basically said, hey, look, asset safety is going to go up in cost. And so here's the chart that he put together based on Hobo Leaks numbers for the value. So here you have the base value, how much something costs to build, what it used to cost, and as of today, what it will cost, and then how much the asset safety used to be for that, and how much it's going to be in the future. If this is to be believed, an Amatar used to cost about $7.5 billion to get out of asset safety. Now it's going to cost $26.5 billion to get out. And if you have a super capital ship, for instance, it used to cost $2.1 billion, and it will cost now $7.4 billion. So these are multiples of what it used to be.
Big jump.
Yeah, Kenneth, do you have anything on that at all? You might be out at the moment.
Well, he's on mute, actually, I believe. Kenneth, you having a problem with mute there?
Are you able to talk? Or maybe he's away.
Nope, I see him moving. It's like a puppet with no voice. So I'll play the part of Kenneth. I think, this is... I'll try and mimic. Yeah, it's because as the cost, there's a cost element for the asset safety. As the cost of the item goes up, the cost of the asset safety goes up. So because the new base values have increased dramatically, that means the new asset safety cost will have also dramatically increased as well.
Okay. By the way, we lost RonUSMC, who had to go take on a fleet. There's going to be a lot of activity. Thanks to Ron for stopping by earlier. All right. The reason I brought this up is it may play a role in the future of, first of all, for everybody out there, I should have said this yesterday, but get your stuff out of asset safety that's super expensive because it may go up. It may have already gone up because of the volatility of the market. That constitutes what the asset safety price is going to be. So it may have been too late. I think I did give that warning out at the beginning of when all these changes were first announced. But the way I look at this, is the Imperium started talking about asset safety yesterday and reassured their guys that they were going to pay the asset safety bill. And I think if you're talking about, this is theoretical, taking 500 to 1,000 super capitals and titans and asset safetying them, that bill just got 3.5, 4 times as high as it used to be. So that just looks a lot more painful if that is the escape route of Imperium, which I'm not sure it is because they have other options. Asset safety is just one of them. So basically what the Imperium may be saying is we'll cover your asset safety of your other items, but your warships, we want you to stay here and fight with those warships. So also think strategically that was a message to their people not to worry about the increased asset safety cost because they don't want them switching sides, right? Another way out for those guys is to say, you know what? I don't want to pay $26 billion. That's as much as another super just to get my Titan out of storage in asset safety, just to be in Ermelin, where there's a fraternity Keepstar sitting there looking at it. That's a bad situation. I may want to just switch sides. I'm not sure people will do that, but I think saying, hey, don't worry about that cost. We got it. We'll make you whole is a good way to re-incentivize people to stick around.
Right. That's still a pretty big bill if a lot of people start bringing that bill forward, though. So,
yeah.
You know.
Here's MER Monthly Economic Report, a Poshvin loot table. I'm going to skip this. We'll get to it later in the week because I need to understand it better to explain it correctly. Today in Hobo Leaks. By the way, Ken, do we have your voice yet?
Nope.
No, still muted. All right,
Might need to disconnect and come back there, Ken.
It's not on my side, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, just one real quick fact check. The Imperium dreads did get on Killmails. Lots of them actually. I was a little checking. I think we misinterpreted one of the comments incorrectly. So before all those dread pilots come at Matterall, no, we recognize you got on the kills. Good job.
Well, I cited my source, which was somebody in the audience, and I just thought that was interesting and would change my mind about the intent. But thank you for clearing that up and giving us some straight info. That's correct. So now that false information is tied to that guy. Okay, so Hobo Leaks. A lot of stuff in Hobo Leaks. I don't really want to spoil too much because Hobo Leaks represents what's on the test center. This stuff that we're about to talk about is not in the game yet, but it points to stuff that will probably be coming into the game in the next month. So just a couple things. We won't go into detail here. We don't have time, but the monument that is going to be built in M2 is now inside of the test center. We have, thanks to Dr. Spod here, some really cool versions of animated Aura. And we're not going to hear her voice here, but you can see animated expressions. And
I think that's kind of neat, actually, personally. But
yeah, we watched him play through like the new player experience or the first few minutes of the game time, and the characters there all the time and animated all the time, voiced all the time. It really feels like you have a little companion with you, which is cool. And she's guiding you through the initial steps and stuff. Now, what's cool about this is Aura, which we knew was going to happen. We saw this in Las Vegas in 2019. It was demonstrated. And then they showed that this might extend to mission NPCs, the people that give you the missions. And I think we saw some underpinnings of that animation for them. So maybe in the future, in the near future, getting a mission is going to have a voiced AI that talks to you. Not AI, but basically a voiced character that gives you the mission and tells you what to do, which would be kind of cool. All right, another thing we saw today, I won't show it here because I want you guys to see it for yourself, not in our program. But Jita has a new interior. So if you're docked up in Jita, it is gorgeous. It looks like a Metropolitan.
Yeah, on SISI, that is.
There you go. Yeah, this is on CC. It's not here yet. So we won't spoil that. You can look at it. Another thing that we found was that Eve is turning 18 on May 5th. So you're going to see a lot of celebration things going on. There's already a Eve turns 18 statue. I think that's going to be, what was that? Katya Say, and they have her holding the 18. It was for something.
No, that was for the video contest that they're holding, right? So they're holding a contest for people, and they use the Katya Say just a statue to promote it. That's for the contest.
Yeah, we showed that yesterday. It's really cool. But also, when Eve turns 18, you're going to see what we looked at in some of the Hobo League stuff. This isn't a big spoiler, so we'll go ahead and talk about it. Is an 18 T1 cruiser free-for-all. It means 18 people coming in to fight each other. One man or one ship leaves alive. Everybody else dies. 18 for 18 years, it sounds like. And
those are actually updated on TQ already.
Oh,
the filaments are already updated on TQ. They did not want to make this a spoiler. They just flat out put it out and said, hey, this is coming, and try and get max participation.
Fantastic. So free for all for 18 cruiser pilots. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then later on, by the way, this looks like it's May 7th through 11th. And then later on the 21st through the 25th, Gnosis are going to be fighting each other, but it's going to be 2 versus 2 Gnosis. All right, one last thing here before we get to the big story of the day, which is production, is these Webby Awards. Kenneth, you wanted to bring this up, right?
Right. The Webby Awards is basically an online award that goes to video games or things that are in them. And for Eve, it's Project Discovery. And the main competitor that Project Discovery has is a game that's on a phone. I assume it's iOS and Android. But those people are not doing any social media whatsoever. They're just using push notifications to, hey, please vote for us, as you're using the app on your phone. So they have a direct access, whereas Eve has to rely more on social media. There has been a couple prompts on the launcher, but they don't want to do an actual push notification to in-game to get you to vote. so they're relying more on social media and word of mouth to do it. But if you get a chance and you can go look, please register and vote for Project Discovery.
Yeah, let's give you a chance to do that right now. I'll grab the URL and drop it into channel there. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, we look like we might win that, but it's going to be other groups are catching up. So if we don't get more votes on there, we may see that slip out of our hands, which would be too bad. Webby Awards are actually very prestigious among the web design community. All right, and now finally to our topic of the day: the patch notes. Yay! First thing that's funny about this, Kenneth, I'll turn it over to you in a second, is there aren't that many notes because they really just refer you to this development blog. Other than that, there's really just a handful of notes here. It's almost like a bug report.
I think they just hit the highlights, right, and fix one little defect fix, right? Poor little exploration got a little fix. Where
Well,
they,
and the gas. The gas was actually supposed to be in on the first patch, and for whatever reason it wasn't. But yeah, it was kind of a dead horse at this point, and there's no sense flogging it anymore. So, anyone who was shocked by today's patch notes that industry changes were coming probably needs to go back and read the blog anyway. So it was just a continuation of what's already happening.
So, Kenneth, first question off the top of my head is the adjusting of the T2 ships when you're reprocessing. I don't know how many times you reprocess a T2 ship, anyways. But when the standard materials removed, was that announced? Did I just miss that, or did I just not care because of my previous comment about like why would I do it anyways? But
yeah, CSM didn't know either. But in reality, it was a double reprocess. So like when you reprocess a capital, you get your capital components back. You don't get minerals back. And then you have to reprocess the capital components to get minerals because it's a two-step build process. The same thing for T2 ships. When you reprocess, you get the components back. If you want moon goo back, then you have to reprocess again. And they essentially gave you minerals back because it reprocessed the Tech 1 ship, which is the input, or the Tech 1 item, which is the input to Tech 2. So, and that's a one item, one of one. So there shouldn't be any reprocessing back from that anyway. So this was more, I don't want to say squashing a bug because it was in there on purpose, but it was more just cleaning it up to make it the same as everything else, basically, so that when you hit reprocess, you basically go back one step. And then if you want the next step, then you have to reprocess again, and you lose 45% every time.
okay, that makes sense. Can I actually get the T1 hull back in the reprocess step?
No, because
I mean it's
only one item. So you
Yeah.
never, if
Get a
only
single
one
item.
is used, you'll never get that back.
Yeah, which means all that second step, that first step, sorry, I guess, of the entire process is completely gone in this case, which I guess leads more back to my first statement, which is why would you ever reprocess a T2 hull?
Correct.
go blow it up or give it away or something. Is probably.
Yeah, I'm sure much like the removing all the belts that didn't have any ore in them that they thought was benign. They probably thought this was benign as well and didn't tell the CSM. And it turns out in this case, it probably is benign. But we did not know that was coming either.
All right. Well, minor part. Let's get to the real big news. That one kind of just struck me because I was like, must have completely zoned on that. So where would you like to start? What's the biggest thing today? Everything on target? Were they? Yeah, it's as expected, or how do you see it?
Well, right after downtime for about an hour and a half, Jita and the markets had some issues. They fixed them internally, got everything back up and running. Other than that, I haven't even seen any. I haven't gotten any DMs. It's been eerily quiet today, which almost has me more worried that tomorrow is going to be But I think most people that cared enough about this had been up on it, reading about it. They knew what was happening. So today was just the culmination. everyone was ready for the most part, and it was just another patch day. As I said before, most everybody's pre-built stuff. I could build battleships right now for the most part. So it was just the end of a long process, and the beginning of the next domino.
So do you think it rolled out unusually smooth for a patch this big?
Patches lately, knock on wood here, we haven't had the whole, for those of you that are OG, hey, set a long skill queue on Monday
Right.
night or Tuesday type thing. That really hasn't been an issue the past few years. I mean, certain things have come out and had a bug here or a bug there, but they've been really good about fixing that, very, very quickly. And we haven't had a significant downtime or significant event in quite some time.
Yeah. I love that reference. It used to be that you didn't have a 24-hour queue, or if you did, even when you had a 24-hour queue, you would want to put your skill there that lasted like 3 weeks, so that if downtime hit and you were out for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, you wouldn't be penalized for not accruing skill at the time. So you wanted to make sure you had a long, anytime patch day came around, there was always a chance you were going to be out of commission for 3 or 4 hours or longer. So you put a skill there that could bridge that gap.
Yeah, basically Omega accounts back then had alpha skill queues. That was the skill queue that we worked by. So yeah, it's you put on a Battleship 5 or something like that and let it go. And I think it was like Apocrypha or Dominion, one of those in that time frame. It was like 5 or 6 days before you had steady access to the game. So it was rough there for a while.
Yeah, you're even calling it Battleship 5, which isn't even the way it is now. It's each race has its own battleship, right? So that's a little old school talking there.
By the way, you make a good point that even when the patch went through, a lot of times there'd be instability coming back for the next 5 or 6 days. So you would just not get stable playing time after that. Yeah, patch day used to be really scary.
Absolutely was.
But not this one. This one, again, not a surprise because they telegraphed it. I think it was communicated well, thanks to, in part, CSM putting out that document that kind of showed where everything was going to go. If you haven't seen yesterday's program of Talking in Stations, you should look at it. It's basically industry help from RevWorks, or Revendal, and he built a tool that can be used to help conceptualize your understanding of like what the new production lines are going to look like. And that was a good program, also a good tool. He's having a little trouble keeping it steady, keeping it up, but he'll work that out. And then you can figure out what you're going to do. But other than that, no real surprises today. Did you want to show, Ken, did you have something to show? You were going to show the blueprint cost or something, like as an example?
Right. Yeah. When the patch first came out a couple weeks ago, the one blueprint that a lot of people latched on was the, do you have the screen up?
Yep.
Was this blueprint here, the Enhanced Neuralink Protection Cell. And as you can see by the screen, I have it set right now to a Satoyo in high-sec in perimeter with Tech 1 rigs. The patch day 2 weeks ago, it was 486 billion ISK to research this BPO from ME0 to ME10, and it was another 486 billion to research it from TE0 to TE20. So basically a trillion ISK to research this BPO. And a lot of people were upset, rightly so. However, they also picked perimeter, which is one of the worst systems in the game to research. But I just want to show in 2 weeks what's happened. So right now it's set to perimeter, and I'm going to scroll down and show you the cost. So now it's down to 90,231 million for that same 0 to 10 time. So it's reduced from 486 billion to 90 billion. The 90 billion is still pretty hefty. I get that. That would even hurt me. I'd wince a little bit when I press the button. But this is in perimeter. I want to show people real quick the difference between perimeter and a different place. And I'm going to use my favorite system in the game.
Well, I bet I know which one it is. Nope. I was going to guess Mela. Scroll down,
as you can
scroll
see
down all the
now-
way to the bottom just to make sure we could see. Yeah, there's a.
Oh,
There's-
okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry. But it's 307 million ISK to go from 0 to 10. So that's basically 620 million to go 0 to 10 ME and 0 to 20 TE. This is in line with what you would expect with a carrier, or it's a little bit less than a super carrier, but a carrier, a fax, or a dread BPO. So it's not outside of the realm of crazy by any means. But this also shows that when you are doing industry, picking where you do it matters, and it matters a lot. So much, I mean, from 92 or 90 billion to 307 million. So that's a, 87.7 billion shift just by picking a different Saudio.
Yeah. That's huge.
But
And
at the end of
and
the
the
day,
research
also-
time.
Well, yeah, the research time too, just from the bonuses. But at the end of the day, this is good. In my opinion, this is going to start to become more and more prevalent in the game, and something that young, new player industrialists are going to be able to capitalize on by not having a setup area and not having a lot of pain moving their industry somewhere else. If they go to set up in some place that doesn't have an index of 10 already, spread out a little bit and take advantage of the low cost index, and your profits will go up.
Yeah. And for people that don't understand, it's not the tax from the structure that really counts. It's the system's index that counts. That's the big number you have to watch out for.
I can actually show that. I'll bring it up in for the Ford.
While he's doing that, I just want to reemphasize, system index is important. The tax from the structure, less important. No, a high index costs more. So if you're building in an index that has a 4% tax on it, your costs go up by 4%. If you are in Jita or perimeter, that's going to be a 10 or 12% tax, much more.
Yeah, 17.68 for
Oh my
perimeter
God.
right now.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, even in New Caldari, it would probably still be up in the tens of billions to research that blueprint.
Yeah, huge difference. And so if you want to know what an index looks like for your system, use your map. It has stats and geography heading, filter basically. And inside that group of filters, you will see indexes for research, for manufacturing. And you want to click on those. And then each system will light up with a percentage and tell you which ones are expensive and which ones aren't. And at that point, if you're going to research, you want to go to a place that's cheaper.
Now, and one thing, this is Fuzzworks. Steve Rukun, ex-CSM member, he's been on the CSM for quite some time. This is his
Renukin?
website.
Yeah.
Yeah, Renukin. So if you were in Amar, say, you could just type the name into the system name. And load range, and that little 4 after tells you all the systems within 4 jumps of Amar, and then you can sort by index that way, and you can put in whatever system you're in, how many of their jumps you're willing to go, and it will show you all the systems in that radius and what their indexes are, so you get an idea of where you can go to get a little bit better price for your industrial endeavors.
Right. And you can do this in game as well. I think Steve's third-party website that we're looking at is more precise. But in the game, you can do 1 system out, 5 systems out, 10 systems out, and then the whole region. You can filter that way. And that I think you find inside the industrial window.
Right, in the industry UI. The good thing about the in-game one is it will show you what you have access to. This only shows you the system and that there's a system there. In-game will let you know if there's a citadel or an engineering complex there and whether or not you have access to use those facilities.
Yeah, and then in game, you can also hover over the symbol for that location for the job that you're looking to do, and it'll pull up an additional little information window, which if it's a citadel will tell you the actual costs, any additional costs, plus the rigs, plus all that other stuff. So if you really want to kind of get down into what, picking one over the other, maybe you want to maximize ME over TE or TE over ME or whatever it is, or whatever it is you're looking to do. The in-game one gives you all that information right there. You have to kind of know what you're looking for, but yeah, the in-game one I use a lot. I like it.
Kenneth, you've been playing this game a long time. You were around when the Cryas expansion came out, or Cryas. Did you have something to do with that one?
Yes and no. Back then it was just Tweet, Fleet, Slack. And there was no Discord, didn't even exist really. So there was a wonderful developer named CCP Nullarbor, and he was pretty active in there, and so was CCP Fozzie. And it was almost kind of like a pseudo focus group. There was still the CSM, but at the time the CSM wasn't really industry focused. So some of the other things bounced off of us. CCP, I call him Gray Skull, but I don't think that was his real name.
Grayscale. Yeah.
And Yitterbum, I think his name was, him. Those guys would convo me and ask me about this or that, kind of off the record type thing. So I didn't have any official direct input, but those guys would, they were in tune with throughput, especially after BTAC-R and stuff. So they could see what was going on, and they asked a lot about pain points and that kind of stuff. And some of the stuff we knew about, but some of the stuff kind of caught us off guard. But that expansion, it didn't quite change as much as this one for in-game stuff, but it definitely added quite a bit to industry for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Kenneth, so just so the newer people, can you reload this tool with just say one jump or something, and then just very quickly walk through which of the columns people should be looking at and kind of how to read it, just to kind of left to right, or what should they focus in on? Because there's a lot of information here.
Okay, well, as you can tell, each column, manufacturing, TE research, ME research, you can sort each column from high to low or low to high. So it depends on what you do. Manufacturing is if you want to build a ship or a module. TE research is if you want to research a BPO to reduce the amount of time that it takes to build something from that BPO. And TE is time efficiency. So the more that you research the time efficiency of a BPO, the faster you can build items off of that BPO. ME is material efficiency. That the more you research that, the less materials it will take to make the item when you build off of that BPO. And then copying is pretty self-explanatory. That's making blueprint copies from that blueprint. And all of these indexes go into an equation that you have to pay an install cost when you start a job. So the higher these numbers are, the more install costs that you're going to have to pay to the game. It does not go to the structure owner. That goes to Concord or SEC or someone.
It sinks out of the game.
Yeah. It goes out of your wallet and you don't get it back. But that goes away, and it's all based on these numbers. So if you want to do copying in a MAR, is one of the best places to do copying because that number is really low. But I'm not sure that there's, based at it's 0.09, that means that's essentially zero. So there's probably no place in Amar to do those activities, which is probably why it's so low. But ASHAB is probably not some place that you want to do it. But down in Serum Prime, there's probably no place there either. But Ernin, there's nothing going on in Ernin. Let's see, what's the security? Yeah, so if you look at the bigger chart, it'll tell you which ones are low sec and this kind of stuff. It doesn't have it on this chart.
That's
But
important
that's
information.
basically what you're looking for on these to tell you where you need to start looking.
Yeah, word to the wise, and we're talking to players who are interested in this, may not be masters of it yet, but if you're going to research a blueprint, don't take your original through low sec, or that's not advisable because you can be killed unless you're confident that you can traffic it through. But you will find the lowest prices in in low sec, because that is where people don't take blueprints to copy or to research.
And that's, I would only put them in a station in low sec. Putting them in an engineering complex in low sec. I know there's some beta dells out there where they put them up and all they're going to do is wait for people to put their stuff in. Then they're going to pull the fuel out of them, let them go abandoned and shoot their own structure. That way everything drops instead of going to asset safety. So be very, very vigilant about where you're putting your items.
Yeah, that is happening a lot these days. So your item will become a loot drop for somebody else if you put it into their station and they decide to do that. So put it in an NPC station if you're going to use a low sec system somewhere. All right. By the way, going back to Cryos expansion, my favorite expansion was Cryos of all the expansions that have ever come through, because it unified industry into one window, gave you insight inside the game for how you were going to build something. It broke everything down into percentages and demystified a lot of things, but I just liked how it cleaned up the industrial experience. And unlike you, Mr. Kenneth, I liked teams, not at first, but I love the idea of strategic industrial active gameplay.
I think you have me wrong. I thought teams was the best thing they ever added to the game. I just realized how insanely broken they were and how much, I mean, hundreds of billions of ISK that were made off of teams. And I used to get hate mail all the time for, hey, you dumbass, why did you pay so much ISK for that team? You'll never get your money out of it, you know. And here I am jamming in 20 Titans, saving 10 billion a Titan, going, let's see, that's 200 billion saved. And I only paid 15 billion for the team. Yeah, I think I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay. Yeah. So you didn't hate it. You just knew how to abuse it and thought that's not good.
Yeah. It was pretty. I would go to bed sometimes, and I had 2 alarm clocks, and I would set them both and wake up in the middle of the night to snipe teams. Routinely, I would do that all week long. I'd wake up 2 or 3 times a night to snipe teams, and it was horribly broken.
Just for people that weren't around when Teams came out, Cryos expansion had this new feature called Teams, and it was in the lore and the backstory that you could hire teams of scientists that burned themselves out for a few days in order to cash out and retire. And essentially that meant you could buy discounts, but it was an auction style. And so Kenneth would, of course, throw a bunch of money, get the discounts that he needed in his system, and save a lot of money doing that. The cool thing I thought was, anybody who buys a discount buys it for the system, not for themselves. So you could leech off other people's discounts, which was kind of cool, because now you could be strategic about where you were going to build drones, where you were going to build armor repair units. And so it became kind of an interesting thing that had you moving industrial stuff around. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you made so much ISK, you didn't care about index. The index in the system that Goons built in and Decloaking, and our system, PL system, and a few others were well over 10. And we just didn't care because you made so much ISK that whether it was a 1 billion install cost or a 4 billion install cost on a Titan, you were saving 10 billion on the hull and another 6 to 8 billion on the components.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was just insane.
Yeah. So
and it scaled infinitely.
Yeah. So CCP basically said pretty soon after it came out, like, this isn't working how we intended. We're not going to spend any more time fixing it. So we're taking it out of the game because they wanted to take out parts of the game that were broken so that people didn't fuss over them. But I think they took it out because you guys were killing it. But anyway, that was a while ago.
Yeah, they knew. They're not that dumb. They play. They knew.
Yeah, but they didn't come out and say people are abusing this or just benefiting too much. They said, we're not going to work on this anymore, and we don't want to just leave it there, so we'll take it out.
Yeah, they said the auction system isn't fair because of sniping, and there's and the other problem with teams is there'd be hundreds of them available, but out of the hundreds, 2 would be just so OP it was stupid, and then there'd be about 5 or 6 that were OP, and there'd be about 10 or 12 that were good, and then there'd be the other 85 that, I mean, if they put them in my system, I would just shoot them and just, not have to deal with them anymore. So they were just that bad.
Right. Only a few were competitive.
Yep.
The last thing I'll say about this, because I talk about it occasionally, I'll reference this as far as an industrialist and building and strategy and that sort of stuff, was what was neat about it is you could put your base somewhere in an area, and then, that would be your warehouse. And then you would run jobs out to different systems and freighters and start building in different areas. And it just felt like it was much more engaging gameplay than what we have now, which is like you basically stay in one area and build. Okay.
Yeah, I want to address one of the comments in chat.
Yeah.
He's talking about if you're saving like that, who cares if some other people are sharing in it? In my system, there was 3 of us that built, and all 3 of us put money in the kitty to buy these teams from. So they were sharing it, but everyone was also contributing. So that made it easier to buy more and more teams, and it just increased our profits just that much more. It just compounded and snowballed itself into, absolute stupidity.
And that was nullsec, so it wasn't easy for somebody to come and bring a freighter to build there and leech off your investment. It was impossible.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the high sec, they just don't have the throughput in high sec. I mean, because it would be for capital components, and some low sec guy would be bidding against us, and he's planning on building 10 dreads, and we're planning on building, 1,000 dreads and how many ever Titans or whatever. So the scale didn't matter. So there was no way he was going to outbid us.
Yeah, you guys are going to throw enough money at it. And again, you can't share nullsec because you have to survive getting there. So, but in high sec, you could just go to whatever system. Nobody cared if you were using their stuff. So it was kind of cool. All right, but we're talking about the past. And that's because the present looks like the transition was pretty smooth. I think, Kenneth, did you say everything you wanted to say about the new stuff? Or
I think a lot of the items, the drops are starting to show up in Jita in numbers. I know, I have to be careful how I say this. I know that they are being watched closely for the numbers that are available. I'm pretty sure CCP is pretty happy with what's showing up and what people are finding. I know that people are finding more and more every day, and more people are jumping into it because it's making certain areas of the game that haven't been profitable or mildly profitable quite a bit more profitable now. So as more and more exploration happens and more things get going, then the drops will increase and that kind of stuff, and hopefully that'll just keep going. I don't think we'll ever get to the points where the price drops, so people are like, nah, I don't want to do that anymore, because they'll start buying them, build ships, that kind of stuff. So hopefully that keeps going. And one of the premises of this was to make it easier for new players to have more avenues to earn ISK. And if a new player has avenue to earn ISK, the veterans will have more avenues as well. So it'll make some of the veteran activities more profitable for them, but it'll also give a foothold for the new players coming in to diversify the way that they can make ISK.
Yeah, I think yesterday I reemphasized how much of a work program this was for everybody, all the way down to the bottom new guy that's just starting out. Everything becomes more valuable. There's opportunities to do things. Now doing those missions doesn't feel like a waste of time. Now doing the exploring doesn't feel like a waste of time. Doing gas huffing, etc. Cool. All right. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. Rundle, do you have any other piece of news that you wanted to put out there?
No, I think that's the primary news that we covered. It could have been busier if they hadn't had a fairly smooth launch of the second half of the changes. So I think it went fairly well. I'm gonna, in my continuation to play Eve the wrong way, I did a few builds in Jita over the last little while. I probably should have moved the materials and built somewhere else, and even increased my money a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see. I just click the buttons and have fun. I don't care.
Normally, yes, but this is such a big change that you might still make a profit even though you're giving 15% away to Jita. It's one of those
That's
changes. Right. Yeah. And the added convenience will save you the time. It's just one of those times where that might actually pay off anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it works out. If not, I had fun spending all my money building ships, and I have lots of ships to either sell or explode. I have options in front of me, right? So I have some pretty fancy blingy ships. If it doesn't go well, look for me in a bunch of pirate faction battleships or whatever. If I can't sell them.
All right, one quick question
I'll start
here
chucking them at Eve.
from he had Razdov or something. He says, when's the next episode of Jove Talks? I want to say that the second episode that was recorded about a week ago is out on youtube.com/talkinginstations. You will see Jove Talks 1, Jove Talks 2. So both those are out. We are going to do a third one, and we may continue this series since it's popular. The next one we have is next Saturday. And we're going to have Adremalith, I believe. He is the former leader since he's not playing anymore. Very, very fierce player. He's the leader of Inner Hell. And we may do a complete hour with him. He's a Russian player. He speaks some English, so we'll have translators there for the more complicated stuff. But a full hour with Adremalith and from Inner Hell.
That's May 8th, as in next Saturday, May 8th. Okay.
Yeah, we have it penciled in for there, and we'll probably do it. It'll be a special episode, and it will be live, so you'll be able to witness that live at, I believe, I didn't give the time because that's not settled, but I believe it's at 1600, could be 2000 or 8 p.m. European time or Eve time. So we'll see about that. Should be cool. All right. I don't see any other questions here.
There was one about the Intel tool.
Oh, go ahead.
The decloaking thing. As far as I know, that's still, it will be coming. I can't tell you exactly when, but as Rattati says, CCP Rattati said during one of the streams a couple weeks ago, CSM and CCP have kind of agreed on a basic framework, and we're kind of moving down that road. Again, I don't know when it's actually going to go into production, but it should be soonish, hopefully.
All right, good. Well, listen, Kenneth, thanks very much for walking us through this whole thing, starting weeks ago when it was announced. That was one of our highest rated videos ever, the reaction video that you did. Yeah. We know you're running for CSM 16. I don't mind saying, you have a TIS endorsement since you're so good at this and it's so present in the development path, obviously. So good luck with that run. Rundle, thanks for hanging out.
You're very welcome. Always enjoyable to talk industry and spaceships and war and all the fun things.
All right. Well, that was patch day for April 27th. And next, we're going to raid you over to, is Trash Talk Tuesday on today?
It is. I'm going to zip over there.
All right. Well, you guys can hang out with Rundle over there. All of us here at TIS, we'll see you next time on Talking in Station. One last thing before we go. Tomorrow, we're going to take a deep look at the communications that were coming out from Alliance leaders. That is still set. Then on Thursday, we were supposed to have a guy from Code talk to him about ganking. We've moved that to Friday. So Code on Friday, and Wednesday is still tearing apart some of these messages and getting behind the scenes on what these messages meant from people involved in the war in Delve. So check that out tomorrow as we go through their recordings and have like a reaction stream. Thank you guys. That's all from us today. We'll see you next time on Talking in Stations.